ding ding, baby. This is cooked. This is actually cooked. I might. This is literally like I'm literally like the glub 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 the shub dub dub dub. Fuck.
Chief, it's not gonna work.
No, it's working.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Rest podcast, guys. Yeah, you know, I just
We're blue because we're sad.
we're blue.
But I don't have my one recording.
After trying to convince Adam to go to the casino, I failed, and then I decided that we were going to do a podcast on the way to the casino.
Wait, hold on, restart. I'll snap. We're blue because we're sad.
Okay. I was yeah, we're gonna go do a podcast in the casino, but I failed to convince Adam to go to the casino.
I was not swayed. He failed.
Fucking hell.
He failed the charisma check.
I vibe check failed, and then I decided to do a podcast on the way to the casino, and before recording I fell over and shattered my wrist and elbow. I don't know if it's shattered yet, but it feels like that. And yeah.
Not good. Not good at all.
This is karma for deciding to just go and do some sort of online shit that wouldn't have worked.
Oops.
But it all worked out because the GoPro survived. It definitely wasn't in the pocket, in my pocket when I freaking fell over. I'm glad the GoPro wasn't in my pocket when I fell over, because if it was, that would have really sucked, you know? It would have really been so bad if it were in my pocket. As you can see, it looks great, and we are currently using it.
Everything is all good.
It will be used in future roast podcasts, and it just
will
looks.
live a long and happy life.
It is.
Imagine if you cracked your computer with that.
Turned off. Oh, the computer as well.
Yeah.
No, surely not. Caution. Battery. Let's check to see if the computer died too.
Computer.
I've only got one arm now, so there's that as well, you know. Yeah, I did. No. So, yeah, guys, welcome back. What's happened with you, Adam?
I did some more 3D modelling.
Oh yeah, your mic's not on.
No, I turned it on. That's
Oh,
why
you
I
did?
snapped before.
Oh, fuck! I didn't even know.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm just that good. No,
He is.
I didn't do a whole lot because he got a sum total of, 10 minutes from like 20 meters away before fucking stacking. And so
Sorry, I ruined your 3D modelling.
No, I mean, it's all Gucci, fam. It's all Gucci. I'll get to it tomorrow.
Sorry, yeah, you were saying.
I was saying, not a lot. How are you?
Oh,
How are you,
nothing
Samuel?
much. Okay, I should actually talk like a human being. Basically, about to go to Crown, catch a train, thinking I'm all set, ready to go. And yeah, I was keen. I was keen to continue the podcast with that GoPro that was still working at the time, and then try and maybe do some call live with the GoPro, see how we go. And then I hit this part in the concrete, like as I'm on the skateboard, that is just sticking up. And this was always something I noticed when I was riding the bike, when I used to do TAFE. I always noticed this part of the concrete sticking up because it'd bump up on my bike. So I knew it was there, but I forgot because I haven't been on these footpaths in so long, and it's pitch black. And I hit the worst part of the concrete clearly, and I fell on this side of my body, and the GoPro literally went into my leg muscle, so leg muscle's not feeling great.
Indented.
Yeah, literally can still feel it indented. Why? It's just such a shame. Anyway, it's gone. It's completely cooked.
I was going to ask if I could have it.
You can have it if you want. It doesn't fucking work.
No, it's alright.
And I fell on my wrist, fell on my elbow, considerable amount of pain for a good minute, and then it kind of died down, and then it started back up again. But literally, I'm like, I was not really putting it on at all. I was on the pavement, just clutching my wrist and my elbow in so much pain. I pretty much screamed out in pain after it happened. And then all these cars are just driving past. I'm thinking, I was kind of like got a vibe check for the world. I'm like, Jesus, I could have just like, everyone's driving past me. I'm thinking surely someone stops, and then someone drives back and just pulls over, and they're like, it's two like elderly-ish people. And she's like, I'm a great-grandmother, get in my car. This legit happened. She's like, I'm a great-grandmother, get in my car, we'll drive you home, honey. I'm like, no. I'm like, the house is just there. I'm like, literally 2 houses down, it's there. And she's like, oh, you sure? I'm like, yeah, it's all good. And I'm just like, thank you so much. No other cars literally stopped. I'm glad there's like at least someone that
At least someone decided
will
to
start
pass the vibe check.
past the freaking vibe. Not that I'm like expecting people to stop for me, but it's like, wow, like only one car stopped, and I reckon about 40 went, no more than that.
40.
Try like 90 went past me when I was on the ground wincing like hell. I reckon.
Oh yeah, you were
Both
on,
ways. I'm on Warrigal Road.
You're on Warrigal Road. Okay.
So you're thinking like, wait
I'm thinking
a minute.
going down
There. There's no way not
down Madeline Street.
Yeah. Nah.
No,
Warrigal Road, both ways, both cars going past me, and it was someone on the other side.
I know exactly where you are now.
Yeah, on the other side of the road.
Which one you hit?
He knows where I fucking stacked and which one I hit. Yeah. Now you know what I
That
mean.
one is terrible.
Yeah.
That one is legitimately like gonna kill someone someday.
Oh,
Almost killed you.
No. I don't think that can kill anyone.
I mean,
You think? You actually think that could kill someone on Sunday?
I mean, if someone trips on it and
It
it
falls
goes
their head.
straight onto their head,
Head,
then
yeah.
you
Could.
It could end up killing someone. We gotta fucking get the council out to stop.
Could
that
I
shit.
sue the council?
You could have a go at the council for it. I
Do you reckon I could?
I mean,
Burundara Council?
the thing-
Burundara City Council?
Things been like that for ages. So if
But I gotta. But what if someone says I wasn't wearing a helmet because I wasn't wearing a helmet?
do you have any evidence that you weren't wearing a helmet?
I don't have evidence that I was, but no, there's no evidence that I wasn't. So I could lie and say I was. Wouldn't work, would it?
I don't think so. But I mean, it's still
It's
has
still
it.
bad.
And the fact that it's right next to a kindergarten is like, chief.
Look, I'd love to sue the council and get heaps of money for my pain and suffering of this broken
The council will decide your fate.
They the chancellor will decide your fate. Oh, is it the council?
I am the Senate. I am the Senate.
Fucking hell.
Unlimited power. Unlimited power.
Oh, speaking of unlimited power, how bad was the last Star Wars?
I haven't seen it yet, but I heard it was, you know, I mean, as much shit as as much shit as the prequels get right, they're still movies. They're still like watchable. Fuck off.
This shithouse. This is so
Mate,
bad. Is this
the
going to open a can of
prequels.
worms argument?
The prequels.
You must just
are
love
my
the effects.
Favorite.
Everyone says this. Everyone I know says this. I know so many people that are just like, the prequels are great, they're my favourite. I'm someone who goes in...
Let's be real.
I'm a story
everyone's-
man. I'm not
Everyone's got their fucking, you know, nostalgia goggles on for Mark Hamill and what's his name, Ian McDermott.
Oh, they're
in fucking 4 to 6, right? The original trilogy.
Oh,
And they were good, right? And they've been spruced up since, of course. Like, you know, they've redone the effects in remasters and stuff.
Oh, the remasters
But,
are shit. I'd rather the original 1977 cut.
To be honest, while they may have been more interesting as stories, the prequels were more interesting in terms of just sheer Star Wars lore. They were more... No. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you... No. Think about it.
I couldn't get into it. It made me bored. I was very bored. Very, very bored.
That's because you're a dumb shit.
Cunt. Fuck you.
No,
it's
think,
not a movie.
think about
it's
it
a
like
movie.
think about it like this, right? In what's it called? in the originals,
Oh yeah.
you went to a whole lot of different planets, right? There was Tatooine, and there was all sorts of other ones like Hoth, Endor.
Hold it on. Oh wait, no.
Big sad.
Oh,
But
that's
then
a bad joke.
it's like all the battles are so small. The largest battle, right, is the battle of. It would probably be
Iwo
the
Jima?
Battle of Endor, which is the
Kidding.
second Death Star. But
That's bad.
even then, that's not even a huge battle, right?
Yeah.
Because the whole rebel fleet turns up, and the Death Star has its shield up. The second Death Star has its shield up, and they got to get down onto Endor, the forest moon of Endor, and take down the shield generator so that the rebel fleet can actually attack it.
Yeah.
So this space battle that turns out there is completely one-sided because the Death Star is in fact operational, and it just lances ships like fish in a barrel, and the rebel fleet can't attack back, and when it does eventually open up, the shield drops and it becomes a space battle. The only ship that gets any kind of actual visible effectual kind of damage is the Millennium Falcon, which, as we all know, flies into the bowels of the second Death Star and blasts this reactor open.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's interesting and all. And then you've got the Battle of Yavin, which is the first Death Star, which is like, it's interesting and all, but it's small. It's very much a product of the time where they couldn't have these big epic space battles. But then you go back to the Clone Wars, and you've got huge battles like Seleucami and the Battle of Coruscant. The Battle of Coruscant was such a fucking show, right?
Shit show. But yeah.
No, if you fucking paid attention, it's so interesting because the Empire's interesting, alright, but if you think about Clone Wars era, Star Wars, the Star Wars Galaxy, and all of the geopolitics and all of the hyperspace routing that they have to do, the way that Grievous, right, gets his fleet of separatist ships into the very heart of the Republic above Coruscant without them ever knowing is so interesting to read up on, because he just appears out of fucking nowhere. Like, it's just a regular day on Coruscant, and then boom, all of a sudden there's fucking separatist ships, and they're gunning for the Senate building, and they take the Chancellor. Of course, Chancellor Palpatine is Sidious, so it's all orchestrated by him.
Spoilers.
But it's so interesting, because then all of a sudden all the Venators turn up from the Republic Navy, and there's fucking thousands of them just going at it above the heart of the Republic, and it's this epic space battle. And then there's other ones like fucking the Clone Wars era was so much more vibrant, vivid, and interesting a time in of course the prequels are, meme filled and Jar Jar Binks and all that kind of other random shit, but like, in terms of Star Wars lore, I reckon they are by far and away, they gave us more on the Jedi, more on the Sith, more on the geopolitics of the Republic and the Separatists. It gave us entire plot lines regarding all the droids, all the clones, some of the unique clones like Rex and Wolf and Fox, Nines, Fives. They're so unique, and you get none of that in the original trilogy, because the original trilogy is so much more insular. It's all about, the crew of the Millennium Falcon, pretty much, like Luke, Leia, Han Solo, Obi-Wan for a time being. It's about their fight against the Empire, the Emperor, Darth Vader.
It's for me.
That's it. I mean, it's interesting. I'm not saying the original trilogy are bad films by any stretch of the imagination. They are not bad. They are fantastic. The effects that they got, you know, they're all practical. All of them are practical effects, pretty much. They may have been touched up in the remasters with, you know, digital, but all of them were practical. They had puppets, they had marionettes, they had black backgrounds with the ships floating on them, and the lasers were, you know, animated, superimposed onto the rest of the film. And they achieved this massive space epic in whenever, the fucking 80s or something. That's impressive. That's so impressive.
70s.
But 70s. That's even more
Going
impressive.
in 70s is amazing. It's just made
That's
for its
even
time.
more impressive.
Incredible.
But just for me, the prequels are more interesting. Like you get more emotion out of the original trilogy, but there's a lot more to see and a lot more to think about in the prequels.
Fair enough. Do you like Phantom Menace at all?
Yeah, actually, for the most part, I do. I think the battles on Naboo are interesting.
Is the
And
trade talk like
The
boring?
trade talk, actually, if once you sort of decipher it,
Racist stereotypes in it?
it is kind of interesting to think about that kind of, because it is, you know, it is canonically, well, they try and not, it is established in legends, right, that humanocentrism, you know, is, alien species are basically racially segregated or whatever, and that's why they don't have. That's why you never see an alien stormtrooper, because the Empire is all humans, and all of the aliens are like the slaves and the custodial staff, like cleaners and shit. And if they don't have alien cleaners, they've got droids. But the thing is, all of this talk, I mean, the pod race was fun, fast, interesting, and this completely
this is
unique.
pod racing.
Like that's a funny meme, but the actual pod race was a thrill ride. It was I thought it was really fun the first time I saw it.
Fair enough.
I remember being in a little motel in Warrnambool. I was there with my parents, and it was like 7 in the evening, and it was so, and I was like so young at that time that I wasn't allowed to stay up super late. But Phantom Menace was on, and I really, because I saw the ad where there was like a bit of the pod race, and I thought that was so cool. I just wanted to see the pod race. Like everything that sort of came before that and everything that came after that didn't really matter. As long as I got to see the pod race, I was happy. And like it was fun. I was as a kid, I think I was like 8 or something. As a kid, I was so thrilled. Every twist and turn of this rapid fire, you know, they're hovering along the ground, and he's got laser beams between his engines, and he's got this sweet ass control scheme and stuff, and he's flipping buttons and hitting switches, and the dials lighting up. I was enraptured.
Fair enough.
Like there's
Definitely.
as films,
It's pretty cool.
as films, they're lackluster, especially Phantom Menace. But you know, there's still something that you can get out of them.
Especially if you watched them when you were younger and you loved it when you were younger. It's got like a nostalgic.
Like
piece
I mean, I
for you.
probably wouldn't enjoy the prequel trilogies maybe as much. I might enjoy them even more now that I'm older, and I can understand all the political speak and all the trade talks and all that kind of stuff. All this being said, at least the prequels are better than the sequels.
I mean, Force Awakens, yeah, they're all kind of fan service, to be honest. Like, prequels, like, at least did something different. Like, as much as I don't like the prequels, they did something, like, very different, like, to the original movies. Like, the the newer ones are just fan service to the original.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all just fan service.
Exactly, because in the originals, it was a really contained story, right?
Yeah.
Everyone at some point was aboard the Millennium Falcon, and it was the rebels against the Empire. This tiny little band of dudes, dudettes, aliens, and stuff running around against this enormous force, literally the dominant force in the galaxy, right? Headed by the most powerful Sith that had ever lived. 1,000 years of the rule of two, leading up to Darth Sidious being the most powerful. He inherited 1,000 years worth of Sith knowledge, and he's the most powerful person in the entire galaxy. And they still win, and it's this story, this tiny little story of like maybe three main people, like Han Solo, Luke, and maybe I don't know, like I don't know if there were three main people in the story, I might say it would be Han, Luke, and Leia. But yeah, it's this tiny little thing. But then the prequels are enormous. It's this massive space battles, politics. There's tons of people. There's the entire Jedi Order. There's thousands of Jedi, and as opposed to the last two Jedi being Obi-Wan and Yoda, and then they both pass on, and then it's just Luke, and he's not even like a full Jedi. By the standards of the old Jedi Order, he'd be less than a Padawan. He'd probably still be like a Jedi learner, but he grows, and he sort of, because he's not bound by the rules of the old Jedi Order, he's sort of already the Grand Master of the new one. He's the last Jedi. But in a way that the sequels were so, in a way that the prequels were so massive, and they just went all out. Yeah. Huge clone armies, massive ranks of droids, waves of droids, space battles where there's thousands of ships all above one single planet, blockades. It was crazy. Just the spectacle of the prequels was enough to get people, like Star Wars on a scale no one's ever seen before. But so the sequels, there's
a lot of things they did right, I guess.
There were,
but a lot of things
I mean, yeah. By they got a lot of lore things right, and they had a lot of little subtle things.
You don't want to watch the last one.
Which one? The last one? No.
The one that just came out.
No, I thought you were talking about the prequels still.
No.
Sequels.
I thought you were talking
sequels
about
are
the newer ones.
Sequels are just. I've been watching this one guy who argues that Rey, the protagonist of the sequels, is a Mary Sue. Mary Sue. She's basically, a self-insert character, or a someone that unreasonably is favoured by the plot. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. It's a very compelling argument because every single Jedi, and even all of the Sith, are bound by one sort of very particular rule, and that is the bond between mentor and student. With the Sith, it's the rule of two. There's a master to hold the power, and an apprentice to crave it. Right? There's always two. A master and apprentice, and then with the Jedi there was the masters, the knights, and there was the Padawan. So there was a Jedi was assigned a Padawan, and they had to teach the Padawan the ways of how to deal with things on a more field-based level instead of like the practical theory stuff that goes in at the actual temple. They're on the battlefield, or actually, doing their Jedi peacekeeping out on planets, and they have to teach them ways of the Force in an applicable situation. But, without and Luke is this legend in the sequels. The what's it called? Force Awakens is literally a story about finding Luke Skywalker.
He's not even in it for like that.
He's not even. He's in it for like the last 5 seconds.
That annoyed me a lot.
But if you think about it, Rey had no teacher, and even then, Luke didn't really teach her a whole lot.
No.
But in the beginning,
She just has it.
But in the beginning, right? She just has this power. Literally, right? She goes. She not only resists like a mind probe, like a force mind probe from Kylo Ren, but she reflects it back and reads his mind instead of him reading her mind, right? She has enough force power or enough force, prowess to pull off a reflection move against someone who was trained not only by Luke Skywalker, but Snoke. And this is Ben Solo, right? So this is, this is the this is the grandson of Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one of Jedi legend. Someone literally born of the Force.
Yeah.
This is someone who should be so powerful in the Force that he there should be no contest between him and Rey. He's been trained. He's the grandson of Anakin Skywalker. He's been trained by Luke and Snoke, and he's a dark side user, which means the dark side is sort of inherently supposedly meant to be more powerful because he's angry and he's like letting this rage fuel his power. But she, without any mentorship or training, reflects his mind probe and reads his mind. Then, right, when they have their lightsaber duel on Starkiller Base, right, when they're in the forest, right, and Finn has to stand up against Kylo Ren for a time while Rey is like knocked unconscious. We can't forget, right, that Finn is a...
Sorry.
It's just reawakened.
That just happened.
Poor child. Waiting for Wi-Fi connection. Oh.
Sorry, continue.
That actually really makes me sad to think about that. Oh.
You can't go on.
I can't go on. It's so horrible.
No. He's a fucking piece of technology.
Look, this is why I like the prequels so much. I just like the droids more than the people. I just like the droids more than the people. I was rooting for the Separatists, bro. I was rooting for the Separatists.
Oh my god.
No, but think about it like this, right? It's said by what's his name, the general of the First Order, Hux is his name. Hux, the general of the First Order says that the First Order stormtroopers are trained. They're precision instruments of battle. They are trained from, I think he says, from birth or something.
Trained from birth.
They're not clones, but they're trained. They're trained professionals. They are very, very skilled warriors. So it makes some kind of sense that Finn would be able to stand up against Kylo Ren in a lightsaber duel for at least some duration. He wouldn't be able to beat him, I don't believe, unless he got some kind of upper hand or an ambush or a surprise. But it should make some kind of sense that Finn would be able to oppose Kylo Ren in a one-on-one lightsaber duel. But Rey should not have been able to defeat Kylo Ren on Starkiller Base in a lightsaber duel. No way. She is
nothing.
she is a scavenger on a backwater planet
50 scavenger.
who had no training, no mentorship, and literally, pretty much, just inherited the lightsaber. So she's had no time to train with it or get used to it.
And you've heard Mark Hamill say in interviews, they ask him about that, and he's like, Rey hasn't even gone to the Dagobah system yet.
Yeah.
Hasn't even been a training.
Snoke brings it up. He says, "You were when what's his name? Kylo Ren crawls his way back to Snoke. Snoke says you were beaten by a girl who has never ignited a lightsaber in her life.
She's strong with the Force." It's like, no. I don't care how strong you are.
It's like, it just doesn't make sense. How is she able... Like, I get that it's, female empowerment or whatever. But if you're bending your own rules
they just
to
want
accommodate some kind of character, that makes them a Mary Sue. That makes them inherently broken.
This has reminded me of... sorry, it's reminded me of YouTube videos.
One of these things really got me once I thought about it. Once I heard it and rewatched the movie and thought about it, the fact what they would do, they go to Mars's bar, right, with the express purpose of delivering BB-8, the droid, to her, so that she could get the droid to the Resistance, to Leia, so that they could get the chunk of the map out of it to find Luke. At this bar, the barkeep, Mars, the person they're going to get in contact with to get the droid, has Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber. The blue one that Luke lost when his hand was chopped off by Darth Vader on Cloud City. How? How is this... This is not... I mean, you can kind of say, yeah, it was the will of the Force. This is an astronomically tiny chance that they would end up in the same place at the same time, and then...
She has the lightsaber from the end of the Empire, or at the end of the Return of the Jedi.
She has the lightsaber that Luke was holding when his hand was chopped off by Darth Vader at Cloud City. It's the same lightsaber.
I thought she has the one from... I thought he kept that and had it from the end of the Return of the Jedi.
It's the same lightsaber that Anakin Skywalker built that was taken off him when Obi-Wan cut him down on the banks of the lava river in Mustafar, that was then inherited by Luke and then lost on Cloud City when Luke was defeated by Darth Vader. It fell down the reactor well that Luke then fell down after it. So at some point,
she found it in the dirt.
It was picked up. There's no dirt on the planet of Bespin. But it's like, how did it end up there?
They always have that. It's part of the stupid story. They always have to include like the Darth Vader mask of like melted, like the whole bloody shit blew up obviously, and the whole thing blew up. But they obviously have to salvage his mask from the wreck. That's part of the trailer fodder. It's just trailer fodder.
No, but the lightsaber is a key story point, because she hands it back.
His mask is too.
Well, he wasn't actually... Darth Vader wasn't actually blown up.
Yeah.
He was cremated on a pyre on the surface of the forest of Endor.
They had his mask,
He died. He died on the second Death Star, and then Luke brought his body back down so that he could be cremated.
Shit, I forgot about that. Alright, now that makes sense that they still have his melted... Alright, I see what you mean.
And it would sort of make sense that Luke may have kept the mask as some kind of, reminder after it was cremated. And then when Ben Solo destroyed the New Jedi Order, he would have taken it as a prize, like a trophy of his rampage, I suppose. But it's like, it's just, the prequels were fun. The sequels could have been so much better. The sequels could have been brilliant. They could have had an extension of the lore that went so far beyond just chasing the original trilogy.
You knew
'Cause
it
you
was
know-
going to do that though. Like you never
you-
could see it being better than the originals,
Well,
or on par with
as
them.
soon as what's it called,
No chance. It's too popular.
Lucasfilms was bought up by Disney. It's just kind of Disney killed
I didn't
Star
think
Wars
that
Legends, and we
was a
no longer
disaster.
have all of the fun stuff that happens in Star Wars Legends.
Yeah, I didn't think that was a disaster when Disney bought it, but now I see
No,
that as a
I knew
complete
it was
disaster.
it was fucking a travesty.
Cooked.
Now that Disney pretty much owns everything, it's like, well, where's the creative freedom? If you're all under the same banner and you're all fighting for the same fucking shareholders who don't give a damn about you,
It's just money. They just want money.
It's terrible.
It's just a way of making money.
And like
That's what
Star
we do.
Wars is such an iconic series, and it's so deep and rich in lore, and it's being perverted by fucking Disney. It's
You
honestly
don't
it's
have to.
quite irreverent, and
It's irrelevant though. If you hate it that much, you don't even have to count it. Like I don't count Djokovic in tennis.
oof,
He's almost won as many slams as Federer in the Dal, but I don't count him because I don't like him.
I don't count.
I don't like the
I mean, the
sequels, so I
sequels-
don't count them. I don't like the prequels, I don't count them either. It's just the first three. I gotta be honest, dude, the only ones I think are worth counting. Oh shit, it's actually still working. The only Star Wars movies I think are worth counting are the first three. They're all good movies. I get bored, so I'm sorry, this is just my opinion. Even though like some of the battles look cool in the prequels, I get bored watching all three of them. I've tried watching all three of them. I remember when I sat down with my mate to watch the Revenge of the Sith, and I was just like trying. I was really keen to watch it. I was excited to watch it, and I just got so bored. I don't know how, but I got really bored. Really bored.
I think it's just because
There's not enough
in
story.
a trade, no, there's a lot more.
The screenplay's horrible. Let's be honest. The dialogue's terrible.
Dialogue. Well, I mean, the only one that actually ever. Well, I mean, you know, Ian McDermott as Palpatine is a fucking riot to watch.
I didn't know he was in the originals and the prequels and the most recent one. I thought he was only in the prequels and the most recent. I didn't know he's in all of them.
He is fucking Palpatine,
In
dude.
all of them. I can't
Ian
believe that.
McDermott is Palpatine.
What a monster
He's
actor.
ridiculously good.
He would have been younger though for the Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, they
Surely.
you don't actually really see his face in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
It's all the prosthetic, you know, mangled face.
So he would have had to be younger and then got older to be Palpatine in the original prequels, and then they timed it well with that, didn't they? Like the same actor for all of it.
He just did such a good job
Impressive.
as Palpatine.
He's a good actor. He's just
He
really good.
did a great job as Sidious. His delivery was great. I mean, just as a character, Palpatine is so good.
It's fun.
And then, you know, Obi-Wan is fun. Obi-Wan is just like you can tell that the actors for Palpatine and Obi-Wan are just having a great time when they're doing it. They're so, you know, they've got lines to deliver. And
Alec
they deliver.
Guinness,
Yeah, I reckon.
he hated it.
Pro-
He said
probably.
many times in interviews he hated it. That's the weird part. Like he
Hello there.
he grew to like it sort of, but he hated it while he was doing it.
Yeah, probably.
That's the
I mean,
weird
I
part.
can imagine so.
Mike, I have to check something. Sorry, I just needed my old and decrepit body right now. Oh, it's like weird focus. It's like not even good. Oh well.
Yeah, well, at least I've got my audio over here.
It'll still be included in the final cut, but like I don't know. Oh, did I click time lapse?